Gavin's hands are trembling as he stands in the grand hallway of his father's mansion. The weight of his betrayal slowly crushing him. He thought he had won, that the house and the money were finally his. But then, a knock at the door breaks the silence. He opens it, and there, standing with a steely gaze, is his father. The man Gavin had shipped off to a nursing home, thought he had outsmarted, was back. Keep watching to figure out what his father said that turned Gavin's world upside down. But, hey, before we dive into the story, do yourself a favor and pause the video right now. Go hit that like button, and let's see if we can make this video reach 1,000 likes. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to your favorite story channel. Also, make sure to ring the notification bell so you never miss out on the latest and weirdest stories. Trust us, you won't want to miss what's coming your way. Now sit back, relax, and prepare to be amazed as we take you on an unforgettable ride. Don't forget to engage with us in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Without further ado, let's dive right in. With just a few words, his father delivers a gut punch that leaves Gavin frozen. Everything Gavin thought he had under control is about to unravel right in front of him. Gavin had always been the type of person who valued money above all else. His elderly father's souci, an old but grand mansion, represented one thing to him: profit. When his father's health began to decline, Gavin wasted no time in finding a nursing home. Without considering the emotional weight of the decision, he packed his father's belongings and sent him away, already dreaming of the money he would make selling the house. As he returned to the now empty mansion, Gavin expected to feel triumph. Instead, he was met with an unsettling silence that seemed to echo through the halls. His mind flashed back to the look his father had given him before leaving, a look that sent a chill down his spine. There had been something in his father's eyes, a quiet strength that shook Gavin to his core. But he pushed the thought aside, focusing instead on the grand plans he had for the property. Gavin moved quickly, contacting real estate agents and making calls, eager to turn his father's legacy into cold, hard cash. He had always been good at covering his true intentions, speaking to his father in vague terms about the future and avoiding the topic of inheritance directly. But now, with his father out of the picture, there was no need for pretenses. It was time to cash in. Days passed, and Gavin's confidence grew. He started walking through the mansion, mentally calculating the worth of every antique, every painting, and every piece of furniture. This place was his now, and soon, the wealth he had always dreamed of would be within his grasp. He was so consumed by his plans that he didn't notice the weight of guilt starting to press down on him. One afternoon, while sorting through his father's personal belongings, Gavin stumbled across an old photograph. It was a picture of him and his father, taken years ago on a fishing trip. His father had his arm around him, smiling with pride. For a brief moment, Gavin felt a pang of regret, but just as quickly he shoved the picture aside. That was a long time ago. He muttered to himself, "This is what needs to be done." His father, however, wasn't as weak and defeated as Gavin believed. Alone in the nursing home, Gavin's father, Thomas, began plotting. He knew his son's greed had driven him to act without thought, but he had one final lesson to teach him, a lesson Gavin wouldn't soon forget. Meanwhile, Gavin made his final preparations to sell the house. He enlisted the help of a real estate agent, a woman named Juliet, who was impressed by the grandeur of the estate. During their meeting, Gavin insisted on receiving the profit in cash. Juliet found the request strange, but didn't question it. "I'll see what I can do," she said, scribbling down notes. "Make sure it happens fast," Gavin replied, his voice carrying the sharpness of urgency. He knew time was running out. His father's health was deteriorating, and Gavin wanted to wrap things up before anything unexpected could occur. He couldn't afford to have his father return and complicate matters. But despite Gavin's best-laid plans, he began to notice strange occurrences around the mansion. Items would go missing, and lights would flicker unexpectedly. At first, he shrugged it off, assuming it was the house showing its age. But the oddities continued, leaving Gavin increasingly unsettled. Then came the whispers. Neighbors who had known his father for years began to speak to Gavin with a newfound coldness. At first, he chalked it up to jealousy. Surely they envied his soon-to-be fortune. But soon, he realized that something more sinister was happening. People knew what he had done. The betrayal was no longer just between him and his father. It was becoming public knowledge. Unbeknownst to Gavin, Thomas had been calling in favors from old friends. Each one of them, outraged by Gavin's actions, began to set the wheels of his downfall in motion. They weren't after his money. They were after justice. They wanted Gavin to feel the weight of what he had done, not just to his father, but to the legacy of the family. Gavin's grand plan began to unravel. Legal complications arose, and the sale of the house was delayed indefinitely. Buyers who had seemed eager suddenly pulled out, citing mysterious financial concerns. All the while, Gavin's nerves frayed. The mansion, once a symbol of his triumph, had become a prison, filled with eerie silences and strange occurrences that haunted him day and night. Then, one evening, as Gavin sat alone in the study, going over the paperwork for the house sale, there was a knock at the door. He opened it to find Juliet standing there, but she wasn't alone. Standing next to her, leaning on a cane but with an unmistakable fire in his eyes, was Thomas. Gavin's heart sank. "Hello, son," Thomas said, his voice steady, calm, but laced with disappointment. "I thought it was time we had a little chat." The air in the room seemed to thicken as the two men sat across from each other. Gavin stammered out an apology, trying to explain his actions as if they had been driven by necessity rather than greed. But his father wasn't interested in excuses. He had come to deliver the final blow. "I trusted you, Gavin," Thomas said quietly. "I gave you everything I had, but you chose to throw it all away. Not just the house, but our relationship, our history." Gavin tried to defend himself, but his father held up a hand, silencing him. "You've already lost the most important inheritance you could have had, my trust. And now, the rest of it is slipping through your fingers." It was then that Gavin realized the full extent of what had been happening. His father's friends, the legal delays, the whispers among the neighbors, it had all been part of a plan to make Gavin understand the true cost of his betrayal. And it had worked. As Gavin sat in silence, his father stood up to leave. "The house is still yours," Thomas said over his shoulder. "But good luck finding a buyer now." With that, he walked out the door, leaving Gavin alone with the weight of his choices. The mansion, once filled with the promise of wealth and comfort, now felt like a tomb. Gavin realized that the riches he had chased after so desperately had come at a price far greater than he could have imagined. He had lost his father's love, his family's legacy, and, most importantly, his own sense of self. Gavin remained in the mansion, but its grand halls no longer held the allure they once did. Every room was a reminder of what he had sacrificed for a fleeting chance at wealth. And every night, as he walked through the empty corridors, he was haunted by the knowledge that he had lost far more than he had ever gained.